Series 10, Part 1, Supporting the Many Faces of FASD, created for the CCCY Professional Development Series online by Colette Sylvestre. There are many faces to fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD. Although preventable, FASD is the leading known cause of developmental disabilities in Canada. There is no magical list of specific criteria and strategies to use to support children and adolescents with a one-size-fits-all approach. Every child with FASD will learn differently and have different levels or degrees and types of brain damage. There is no easy button or fix-all strategy. What is important is that you know as a caregiver, you will need to try multiple strategies to find the ones that work best to support each individual child. In this two-part series, we will discuss how FASD is diagnosed, the importance of how you approach biological moms, and some key things to consider when working with children with FASD. In the second part of this series, we will focus specifically on a variety of strategies to try with different age children. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is a diagnosis that describes a pattern of physical and behavioral abnormalities that can affect a child born to a mother who drinks alcohol during her pregnancy. FASD is a lifelong medical condition or disability. Children born with FASD can be impacted in a variety of ways, from very mild to severe. It is estimated that 1 in 100 people, which translates to more than 330,000 affected individuals, are in Canada. A presentation done for my teaching staff within the Lakeland region of Alberta described the prevalence of FASD in Northern Alberta's classrooms to be about 3 to 5 kids in every room. These can be the kids that have sensory regulation issues, attention issues, or children that have gaps in their learning. Consider the following statistics. 80% of women drink alcohol. 27% of pregnancies are unplanned in Canada. There's a range of 10.8% to 60% use of alcohol during pregnancy. FASD prevalence rates in Canada range from 0.26% to 26.9% in various communities and settings. When we do the math on these statistics, alcohol could potentially impact many children. Within the care of our women's shelters, the likelihood of children impacted by prenatal alcohol use is quite high. Alcohol is a teratogen. This means that it is capable of crossing the placenta wall. According to the Government of Canada in 2018, the impact of alcohol on a developing fetus is influenced by the amount, how much you drink at once, the frequency, how often alcohol was consumed, the timing, when alcohol was consumed in the pregnancy. It can also be affected by other factors such as stress, the mother's age, nutrition of the mother, smoking, or other drug use. How FASD is diagnosed. Making a diagnosis of FASD requires a multidisciplinary team and involves a complex physical and neurodevelopmental assessment. The assessment involves severe impairment in 3 or more of the following neurodevelopmental assessments: motor skills, neuroanatomy or neurophysiology, cognition, language, academic achievement, memory, attention, and executive function. FASD with sentinel facial features. The diagnosis involves 10 components and includes a full team of professionals and can be made if the individual meets either of the 2 sets of criteria. So FASD with sentinel facial features includes facial features and prenatal alcohol exposure confirmed or unknown, and evidence of 3 or more impairments of neurodevelopmental domains listed on the previous page. FASD without sentinel facial features, which is most common, evidence of impairment in 3 or more of identified neurodevelopmental domains, or in infants and young children, evidence of microcephaly, which is defined as abnormal smallness of the head, which is a congenital condition associated with incomplete brain development, and confirmation of prenatal alcohol exposure, with estimated dose at a level known to be associated with neurodevelopmental effects. So, who is on the team? We are fortunate to live in an area with the Lakeland Center for Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. This team of professionals will conduct full-scale assessments on individuals and support mothers to be struggling with alcohol or drug issues. The team will generally consist of a pediatrician, an occupational therapist, a speech pathologist, and a psychologist. The importance of this team is to wrap around a child and their family to offer support and access to resources to improve the life of the child. Children whom do not meet the criteria for diagnosis at the time they are assessed may be given a diagnosis of partial FASD or alcohol-related neurodevelopmental disorder, ARND. The purpose of the assessments are to help inform the intervention steps needed for an individual and should be approached from a strength-based perspective. When you think about the statistics and prevalence of FASD, it is important to approach moms with sensitivity and understanding. It could really happen to anyone. Reserve judgment to take down barriers and instead offer compassion, kindness, and acknowledge that there is a shared responsibility. Encourage mothers to share with you what they know works for their child. Have them offer any strategies to help soothe, communicate, and more. This will help create a two-way street when drop-off and pickup occur at the center. The EFAN network recommends structure, support, and supervision as the very best strategies to support children affected by FASD. Children with FASD will demonstrate holes or gaps in their learning. They might know something one day and poof, the next day it's gone. Therefore, it is important to ensure that children with FASD have consistent structure, constant supervision, and support. These are the very best strategies to support children affected by FASD. Use of routine, consistency, use of rewards and consequences, visual checklists, and visual schedules. Every child with FASD is different, but there are common characteristics. Routine can be something that makes the world of difference in their ability to navigate their world. Consistency is one of the most important strategies to go by. Follow the same routines when the children come into play, the same routines for hand washing, story time, trips to the playground. You must follow the same consistent routines for consequences or rewards as well. If any reward or consequence is going to be remembered or be useful, it must be immediate every single time. Supervision can also ensure that a child can make good choices. Using visuals, gestures, or simple verbal commands to help prompt a child to make a good choice. Try approaching things differently, not harder. Focus on the expectations for the child and determine what the child is capable of. It is changing what the adults whom are supervising or teaching that can make all the difference. Some key paradigm shifts in thinking are moving from traditional management to recognizing that there are brain differences in every child. From the thought of applying consequences to what are the presenting problems? Is there something that a child isn't able to do? From changing people to changing the environment that we create for the children. Through innovation, the Intervention Network Action Group, or INAT, has prioritized research focused on understanding the functional needs of individuals with FASD to allow for the development of interventions that specifically address these needs across jurisdictions and across the lifespan. Interventions are meant to be developed individually by the team of individuals working or living with the child in a wraparound process. This focus must be on a child's strengths and not what they cannot do. How to be proactive. Adapting the environment and the approach to a child's specific needs is what matters most. This ability to plan ahead will ensure you are being proactive versus reactive. However, this takes planning. There are some key things to remember. Adapt the environment. Offer visual calendars, schedules, and routines. Adapt the calendar for the age of the child. Routines and schedules create anchors in time and space and help predict what comes next. It is also important to remember that a routine that a child is familiar with at home in their own environment will not necessarily generalize into a new environment. If things are not working, change what you are doing as a caregiver or the environment. In this picture, we see a snapshot of how the people living in this area changed the landscape so that they could live and farm in the community. Had they tried to farm a community where they didn't scaffold the land, it would have been impossible. Think smarter, not harder. A child that does not understand what the meaning of lineup means is not going to do well when asked to line up over and over again. They will need to be explicitly taught the steps to do the skill and practice it often to learn it. That said, decide if lining up is necessary to complete the task. We cannot change behavior that is caused by organic brain damage. If a child is overwhelmed having so many people and so many loud noises around them, no amount of teaching is going to get them past that part. Sensory processing disorder is when kids just feel things differently than what is typical. There are our senses: smell, sound, taste, touch; vestibular, which is balance; and proprioceptive, which is our input into our muscles and joints. Kids who have FASD may experience hyper, too much, or hypo, too little in some of their senses. They may be under-responsive in some areas and over-responsive to others. Our course on supporting sensory processing offers considerable support for children that have sensory issues. An example to consider: John is refusing to participate in the game you are playing and is acting defiant and has kicked someone already. You've asked him to sit out of the game. It is possible that the game is simply too loud for John and he is completely overwhelmed. If he's hypersensitive to sounds, having him put in earbuds for loud experiences will offer an accommodation to support him. Trying to force him into participating or punishing for him for acting out will only make the situation worse. Watch and investigate what they are sensitive to, sensations they are seeking, or things they're trying to avoid. In conclusion, remember, think smarter, not harder. Think about what the end goal for the child is. Is it lining up nicely before washing hands, or is it washing hands? Perhaps the thing that we believe to be an essential skill is something that overwhelms a child or is beyond their skill level at that time. That means we need to adapt what we do to help them meet the end goal. Perhaps sending kids one at a time to wash their hands is a more manageable approach. FASD remains one of the leading causes of developmental delays in Canada. Every child with FASD is different, and a one-size-fits-all approach will not work because of different levels or degrees and types of brain damage. As a caregiver, ensure that you try multiple strategies to find the ones that work best to support each child. In this series, we have explored how FASD is diagnosed, the importance of how you can approach biological mums, and some key things to consider when working with children with FASD. In the second part of this series, we will focus specifically on strategies that may offer support as per developmental age.